says the probability of relatedness is 96.7%. You didn't believe there'd be a match.
No way.
Do you have a secret sister?
I believe I do have a sister.
So, this is the DNA test, and it says the probability of relatedness is 96.7%. You didn't believe there'd be a match? No way. Do you have a secret sister? I believe I do have a sister out there. Now, if there's one celeb that has their life wrapped up in secrecy, is Janet Jackson. And there's a lot of things that we'll never find out about her life and what she went through as a young star in Hollywood and the music industry. But one thing people want to know so badly is whatever happened to Janet Jackson's alleged secret child. A lot of fans remember seeing Janet Jackson with a bump in the 80s only for it to mysteriously disappear without a word. Since Janet has since said that there is no secret child and that all of this is a wild conspiracy. But people who knew the details behind James Dearge and Janet's messy relationship all say that a baby came out of it, but she had to give the baby up because she was still so young herself and at the height of her career. But is any of this true? And what does James and the Dearge family have to say about Janet keeping a child away from them after all this time? Child, the Jackson family secrets, and what Janet had to go through in the industry as a young rising gifted star is enough to write multiple books about. And on top of all of that, Janet always seemed to have an eye for the worst type of man. Back in the 80s, she made a lot of, I'll just say, questionable dating choices that later landed her in some hot water. Like that time that she was with Magic Johnson in 1983, and she was photographed multiple times with him, and the camera straight up caught them locking lips. At that time, no one had much to say about it. But when the picture started going around in 2020, people were pissed off to see a 24-year-old Magic Johnson being intimate with Janet, who was no more than 16 years old at the time. Like, wasn't there anyone around who saw this happening and tried to put a stop to it? And then there was that whole debacle with Renee Alzando Jr., a dancer and director she secretly married in 1991. It is still surprising to me how Janet was able to keep their marriage hidden for so many years. Even when people sort of caught on to it, her team swore that he was just her boyfriend and nothing more. And I bet that we wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't for their divorce blasted wide open by claims that Renee was entitled to a chunk of her fortune. But before Renee was even in the picture, Janet was actually married to another man named James Dearge. Janet was a rising star and the youngest of the legendary Jackson family, already making waves in her roles on shows like Good Times and Diff'rent Strokes. James, meanwhile, was a part of the Dearge family band, a monotone act known for their silky hits like Rhythm of the Night, All This Love, I Like It, and Love Me in a Special Way. The two met around 1982, when Janet was just 16 and James was 19. And by 1984, they were head over heels and decided to make it official. They eloped in a secret ceremony in Grand Rapids, Michigan with James's uncle, a minister, officiating. Was Janet in love with James? Maybe, possibly. But the bigger reason that she was willing to go all the way with James was because she wanted to escape the control of her strict father, Joe Jackson. Just like she expected, Joe was definitely not happy with what Janet did and believed that this marriage could derail her career. But he really didn't have anything to worry about, because that marriage was doomed from the minute they said I do. James was grappling with a severe addiction which cast a dark shadow over their relationship. In her 2022 Janet Jackson documentary, Janet shared how bleak and unromantic their wedding night was. When they got to the hotel room, James walked out, telling her that he'd be back soon, leaving her alone in their hotel room for 3 hours. And it was a sign of things to come. Janet tried to support James, often even putting his needs before her own career. Sometimes she would even be called to pick him up from odd places and would be forced to find him whenever he didn't come home. While filming the TV show Fame, she showed up late to set, distracted by James' well-being, and the show's producers eventually had to intervene, urging her to focus on her work. The consistent stress of James' substance hook, coupled with his unpredictable behavior, was too much for a young Janet Jackson to cope with alone. Whenever she found pills lying around the house, she would either try to hide them or flush them straight down the toilet. And this led to many fights between her and James. So by March 1985, Just 8 months after their wedding, Janet sought an annulment, citing irreconcilable differences. The marriage was over, and Janet had already experienced more life than any 18-year-old should have ever had to deal with. But girl, the drama was just beginning. Word on the street is that Janet didn't exactly walk away from the marriage the same way she came in. In that brief time that they were together, Janet actually got pregnant and may have had the baby or had given it away. Now, Janet had already said that she didn't have a secret child. But if she can lie about not being married for 9 years, then certainly keeping a child under wraps would have been a walk in the park for Janet. Do y'all remember how crazy the 8s were? Back then, celebrity culture was exploding with tabloids like the National Enquirer, thriving on scandals. Young stars, especially black talent like Janet Jackson, faced a lot of pressure to maintain a wholesome image if they wanted to keep getting gigs. So, a pregnancy at a young age, even within a marriage, would have been exactly enough to halt her career, just like that. The Jackson family were already media savvy and would have known what to do with this, which is why the evidence of any child was kept under wraps. So, while Janet has denied the existence of a child between her and James Dearge, others have been saying that something just ain't right about that story. Some people say that they vividly remember articles in places like Right On and Jet magazine that announced the pregnancy, only for the story to disappear like it was never there in the first place. People were also saying that after that Jet article, Janet disappeared from the scene only to resurface months later with an album called Control, which could have hinted to the type of control and restrictions that she was under. Well, even if Janet wasn't saying anything about the baby, James Dearge had a lot to say. He first spoke out about it with Michael Jackson's doctor, Conrad Murray, and addressed the possibility of having a child with Janet that he didn't know about. While incarcerated, he appeared on Growing Up Hip Hop and told his daughter Christina that he was tired of the secrecy surrounding a child that he believed he shared with Janet. He said, "I'm tired of the truth not coming forward and people being a coward when it comes to it, and I thought that it was wise of me to speak out now because it needs to be addressed." Christina has also said that she believes that she does have a stepsister out there and is looking forward to the day that they would finally meet. She hinted about Janet's family influence on her and how giving away a baby might not have been her decision at all. If it's true, you'll find out when she's ready for you to find out. I'm sure he feels betrayed. I'm sure he feels sad. I'm sure he feels disappointed. I'm sure he feels like he was robbed of that relationship with his daughter. But at the same time, I know my dad loves Janet till this day. I know that her family had a huge influence on her, and if she was pregnant, the only thing that I can think of was that they felt that she still had a very long career ahead of her, and they didn't want anything to hinder that. James Dearge still insists to date that they have a child together, and no one can tell him anything otherwise. But Janet has also consistently pushed back against these claims. In her 2022 Janet Jackson documentary, she addressed the rumors head-on, saying, "They were saying that I had a child, and I kept it secret. How could I keep a child from their father? I could never do that. That's not right." She explained that the pregnancy speculation began when she started taking birth control pills while working on Fame in 1984, which caused her to gain weight. At the time, she was just 19, navigating Fame and a new marriage, and the public misread her changing body as evidence of a baby. Her Fame co-star Debbie Allen cooperated her story, noting that Janet was on set every day working long hours with no signs of pregnancy. Where was the baby? Nobody saw a baby. I mean, she was there with us all day, every day. Where was the baby? Where? But did you notice what Janet said? She never said that there was no child, just that it wouldn't be right to keep him away from James. And that just made people insist that she wasn't telling the whole story. I mean, the rumors got so out of control that some even began pointing to Janet's niece, Brandy Jackson, her brother Jackie's daughter, as the alleged secret child. Brandy was born in 1982 and was in close age with Janet, and is close to the age that Janet and James's alleged child would be, which also fueled wild theories that Janet had given her baby to Jackie to raise. And then fans also said that it was Randall's daughter, Savannah Jackson, that was Janet's daughter, and that it was hard not to see where they were coming from. Stevana looks so much like Janet then, and she fit the bill on how people expected Janet and James' daughter to look. The Dearge family also has consistently added fuel to the fire. In 2017, James' sister, Bunny DeBarge, claimed that she personally saw Janet with a baby bump in the 80s and insisted that the Dearge family believed that Janet and James had a child.